Why did you leave ECW?
There was a few things going on in the background with the contract stuff with Paul, and there was a little bit of a, how can I say, sometimes familiarity can breed contempt, and I'm not saying that's the exact saying that where the analogy is correct, but it very much was something of, hey, you're doing great and this and that and the other thing, and you've dealt with this with wrestling. You're the greatest thing ever since sliced bread until you ask for a fair fee or a fair rate or fair contract. Then you're nobody. Now here's the time to tell you everything that's wrong. But that's a business thing, and I wasn't mature enough in business either. Also, um, Raven had gone to WCW or was going to WCW, so we were talking a little bit about that. At the time, it was two steps back, and I immediately knew that when I went to WCW because we were hashing everything. But you want to talk about compounding mistakes upon mistakes. There was a few things. Now I can make the excuse that I had a very serious neck injury while I was in ECW. I didn't know how much longer at the time I could wrestle before I needed surgery. There was herniated disc. There's all these things going on. That was from the guardrail from Terry Funk on the back of the neck. So, and that was a complete accident, which he still apologizes for, and I don't hold any ill will. But when you're in that bubble and you're not sure, it's like, well, if I go to WCW, I got sure money, and if I have surgery, Raven tells me and they would have, you know what I mean? So I went there, everything happened. I was still continuing to degrade. My neck was degrading as I wrestled and traveled. But they liked me. Bischoff liked me. I met Terry Taylor. Who else was there? There's quite a few people in the office that just thought, once again, I stood out because everybody was just trying to be a tough guy, and I was a comedy act. That kind of went sideways a little bit with Raven. At the time, there was a lot of personal friction between us. So, he was making some veiled threats about having me fired. I don't think he could have, but maybe he could have. We were both, I think at the time too, we both weren't in our right minds, meaning I was, very emotionally distressed about the injuries, didn't know what was going on, didn't have the maturity or enough injuries under my belt to know how to even gauge it. And Scotty was fighting for, I think, politically for his wrestling career, because he was upper mid low top tier, just about to break through and have the break he desired. I mean, talking about Hogan and NWO and all these people being on the cover of WCW video games. Raven was probably maybe it had to be the top 5 marketed character or marketing opportunity for a character in WCW. So a lot of pressure on him, and things are going. And I'm speculating, but now that I look at it, it's like dude was under a lot of pressure to be finally he was right near there to be a main event, and we're kind of trying to figure it out. And people claim we killed Clash of the Champions, so I don't know if that's true or not. We were on the last one, so he's got. But left there, went back to ECW, got hurt immediately, like to the point where I had a really bad stinger after wrestling Chris Chetty. Once again, not Chris's fault, just the matches. You've been in there. It's just once it starts to happen, it just keeps going wrong. Then went in for neck surgery on December 22nd of 97, cut one of my vocal cords, didn't have a voice for 3 months, and then got the vocal implant. And then kind of just, that was it for wrestling. Like I went and I will learn how to work on computers. I learned how to network. I got some great jobs over that year, along with wrestling on independent. So I had the best of both worlds. I was wrestling, like, remember that time wrestling like 4 days a week during that summer, like more. I was like, man, I'm wrestling more than I ever have. Get to do it exactly how I want to. Wrestling for Dennis. So Dennis was running 3 or 4 days a week, and then other companies in Jersey, Delaware, New York, Massachusetts, and I had a regular job. So it was great. And the second I said, and this is what happens to all of us, I was like, you know what? I think I'm done with wrestling. Like, I'll just do the indies.
Ring.
You fucking
phone ring.
5 minutes later, dude. Terry Taylor, want to hire you. June of 99. It was like they could sign my contract.
Before we go there, I have a question about WCW. So you're Stevie Richards. Mm-hmm. You are you were part of the BWO. What was your interaction with Hall and Nash like when you saw them for the first time?
Well, obviously they messed with me, and nothing harmful. Like Scott messed with me, but Scott also had a thing where I don't know if I had stayed for another month, Scott Hall wanted to have a 15-minute match with me on Nitro.
Wow.
You want to talk about something that would have made me,
Yeah.
or I would have learned how to fight for my life, because he's a big, strong dude. He was a big, strong dude. Kevin Nash, bumped up behind me and he goes, "Oh, Big Stevie, cool. At last we meet," or whatever. And I said, "Listen, man, I had nothing to do with it." And he was just like messing with me. He goes, "Well, you're here now. What do you?" He started. And then right before he left that night, he goes, "Hey, man, I'm just messing with you." He goes, "I think it's great. I think it's great."
I would think they would think of it as a compliment.
Well, once again, there's a reason why that I was called Clueless Putz in ECW. I was very, very, you wish you could have the mindset you have now back then, especially business wise. But I just wanted to wrestle. I wanted to make some money. I wanted to set my future family up for generations. Hopefully, there's all these different things, and I didn't know about the distractions of, hey, if you don't go out to the bar and drink, you're going to have heat. These things didn't make sense to me. So the same thing can be said about, obviously, in ECW. Paul set it up to be very much, we were the enemy of both companies too.
Right.
So you don't think Paul's going to go, "Man, if you go there, those guys are going to be so pissed." He never said it, but obviously it's unspoken that you have heat. And that's the way, you can't compete by paying your talent. So I always commend Paul for having, even working with WWE, even we didn't even know it. He had to create this kind of war to make enemies so we would be more motivated to make our names. It's classic propaganda.
Yeah.